The wanted poster had been nailed to the board outside the sheriff's office for 3 days when Liam Lawson first laid eyes on it. And what he saw made his blood run cold in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with fury. The woman's face, sketched in harsh charcoal lines, looked haunted, her eyes staring out from the parchment with a desperation that reached across the dusty street and grabbed hold of something deep in his chest. $500 for the capture of Beatrice Ellis, dead or alive, accused of theft and attempted murder of her lawful husband. Liam read those words 3 times before he reached up, yanked the poster down with enough force to tear the top corner, and walked straight to the nearest barrel where he struck a match and watched the paper curl into ash. It was August 1882 in Owyhee, Nevada, and the summer heat made the air shimmer like water over the parched earth. Liam had been drifting through these silver mining towns for the better part of 2 years, taking work where he could find it, never staying long enough to put down roots. He was 26 years old with sun-weathered skin, dark hair that needed cutting, and the kind of lean build that came from hard living and harder work. Most folks who met him thought he was running from something, and they were not entirely wrong, though what Liam ran from was not the law but the memories of a war that had taken his brother and left him with questions about justice that had no good answers. The sheriff came out of his office just as the last of the poster turned to black flakes in the barrel. Marshal Dan Pritchard was a thick-necked man with a mustache that drooped past his chin and eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. He looked at Liam, looked at the barrel, and spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "That was county property," Pritchard said without much heat in his voice. "Then the county should be more careful about what property it displays," Liam replied, meeting the marshal's gaze without flinching. Pritchard studied him for a long moment, then shook his head. "You do not know what that woman did. Her husband came through here 4 days ago with a broken arm and a story about how she tried to kill him in his sleep. He had the legal papers drawn up proper in Virginia City. She is wanted by the law." "What is her side of the story?" Liam asked. "She has not stuck around to tell it," Pritchard said, "which tells me plenty." Liam felt his jaw tighten. He had seen enough of the world to know that running did not always mean guilty. Sometimes it just meant desperate. Something about that sketch, about the way the artist had captured a kind of broken courage in the woman's face, made him think there was more to this story than a man with a broken arm and legal papers. "Where did she go?" Liam heard himself ask, though he had no clear idea why he was asking or what he planned to do with the information. Pritchard gave him a look that was part suspicious, part curious. "Last anyone saw, she was headed northeast toward the Owyhee Mountains. There is nothing up that way but rocks and rattlesnakes. If the desert does not kill her, one of the bounty hunters will. Word is already spreading. $500 is enough to bring out every desperate man with a gun between here and Salt Lake City." Liam touched the brim of his hat in a gesture that was not quite respectful, and turned away before the marshal could ask him any more questions. He went to the boarding house where he had been staying, paid his week's rent even though he would not be there to use it, and gathered his few possessions into his saddlebags. His horse was a sturdy buckskin gelding named Copper, patient and sure-footed, exactly the kind of animal a man needed in this country. Liam checked his supplies, filled his canteens at the town pump, and rode out of Owyhee just as the sun was beginning its slow descent toward the jagged horizon. He did not have a plan exactly, just a direction and a stubborn feeling in his gut that would not let him ride away and forget what he had seen. The Owyhee Mountains rose up like broken teeth against the sky, and Liam guided Copper toward them, reading the land the way his father had taught him back in Missouri before the war. He looked for the places where someone on foot might find shelter, where water might collect in the rare times it rained, where the shadows would offer relief from the merciless sun. It took him 2 days of searching before he found her, and when he did, she had a rifle pointed straight at his chest. Beatrice Ellis was younger than he had expected, maybe 24 or 25, with dark blonde hair pulled back in a braid that had come half undone and eyes the color of sage in spring. She stood in the mouth of a small cave, her dress torn and dusty, her face sunburned, and her hands shaking just enough that Liam knew she was near the end of her strength. But the rifle never wavered, and her voice when she spoke was steady as stone. "Turn around and ride back the way you came," she said. "I do not want to shoot you, but I will if you make me." Liam raised both hands slowly, keeping them well away from the revolver at his hip. "I am not here to collect any bounty," he said. "I am the one who burned the poster in Owyhee. I just want to hear your story." She stared at him for a long moment, and he could see her trying to decide if he was telling the truth or just clever enough to lie well. The sun beat down on both of them, and somewhere in the rocks above, a hawk screamed its hunting cry. "Why would you do that?" She asked finally. "You do not know me. You do not know what I did or did not do." "Because I have seen enough wanted posters in my life to know that sometimes the people drawing them up are the real criminals," Liam said. "And because no woman gets that look in her eyes without good reason. So I am asking, what is your story, Beatrice Ellis?" Hearing him say her name seemed to break something in her. The rifle lowered just a fraction, and he saw her throat work as she swallowed. "How do I know you are telling the truth? How do I know you are not just trying to get close enough to grab me?" "You do not," Liam admitted. "But I am going to dismount now, real slow, and I am going to take my gun off and lay it on the ground. Then I am going to step back and you can decide what you want to do. Fair enough?" She gave a tiny nod, and Liam did exactly what he had said he would do. The revolver looked strange lying there in the dirt, like a piece of himself he had set aside. He stepped back 3 paces and waited. Beatrice came out of the cave, moving like a woman who had not had enough water or food for too long. Up close, he could see the bruises on her arms, yellowing now but still visible, and a healing cut above her eyebrow. She looked at him with those sage-colored eyes and seemed to be taking his measure, weighing him against every man who had ever hurt her or lied to her or broken a promise. "My husband is not a good man," she said finally, her voice cracking on the words. "I married him 3 years ago in Carson City. I was 21 and stupid and thought I loved him. Vincent Hastings. He was charming when he wanted to be, and he said all the right things. But after the wedding, after we moved to his ranch outside Virginia City, everything changed. He drank, and when he drank, he got mean. He would hit me for burning dinner or for speaking when he had not asked me to or for no reason at all except that he could." Liam felt his hands curl into fists at his sides, but he stayed quiet and let her talk. "I tried to leave twice," Beatrice continued. "Both times he found me and dragged me back. The second time he locked me in the cellar for 3 days with no food, just water, so I would learn my lesson about being an obedient wife. I stopped trying to leave after that. I just tried to survive, tried to stay quiet and small and not give him any excuse. But it was never enough. There was always something, always a reason." She paused, and Liam saw her grip tighten on the rifle. "2 weeks ago, he came home drunker than I had ever seen him. He was raging about losing money at cards, about how everything in his life was cursed, and he started hitting me worse than he ever had before. I thought he was going to kill me. So when he finally passed out on the bed, I knew it was my only chance. I packed a bag, took what little money I could find, and I ran. I did not try to kill him. I did not break his arm, but he is vindictive enough and connected enough to make everyone believe I did." "Why not go to the law?" Liam asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Beatrice laughed, a bitter sound with no humor in it. "The law. Vincent's uncle is a judge in Virginia City. His cousin is a lawyer. Who do you think they would believe? A respected rancher with money and connections, or his runaway wife with bruises she could have gotten anywhere? I have no family, no one to speak for me. I am alone in this." "Not anymore," Liam said, and the words surprised him as much as they seemed to surprise her. She blinked at him. "What? I said you are not alone anymore." Liam took a step closer, slowly, testing. "I believe you, Beatrice. And I am not going to let anyone drag you back to that man or put a rope around your neck for defending yourself. But you cannot stay out here. The desert will kill you before the bounty hunters do." "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, and he heard the exhaustion in every word. "Every town between here and California will have that poster by now. Every desperate man with a gun will be looking for me." "Then we go somewhere they would not think to look," Liam said. "I have a friend who runs a ranch up near the Idaho border north of here. It is remote, and Jake owes me a favor big enough that he will ask no questions. We can get you there, get you safe, and then figure out what comes next." Beatrice stared at him like he was speaking a language she did not quite understand. "Why would you do this? You do not know me. You have nothing to gain from helping me except trouble." Liam met her eyes and tried to find the words for something he did not fully understand himself. "My brother died at Shiloh," he said finally. "He was 19 years old, and he believed in doing the right thing even when it was hard. After he died, I spent a long time being angry at the world and everyone in it. I drifted, did jobs I am not proud of, tried to outrun the feeling that nothing I did mattered. But every now and then, you get a chance to do something that does matter, something that would have made your brother proud. This feels like one of those chances. So maybe I am helping you, or maybe you are helping me. Either way, I cannot ride away and leave you here to die." Something in Beatrice's face shifted, a wall coming down just enough that he could see the scared, hopeful woman behind it. "You really burned the poster to ashes," Liam confirmed. She lowered the rifle completely then, and he saw tears shining in her eyes, though she did not let them fall. "I have been alone for so long," she whispered. "I forgot what it felt like to have someone on my side." "Well, you have someone now," Liam said gently. He gestured to Copper, who was placidly munching on a bit of scrub grass. "Let me get you some water and food, and then we need to move. If I could track you here, others will too. We should ride through the night if you are up for it." Beatrice nodded, and Liam retrieved his gun from the dirt, feeling better once it was back on his hip. He helped her to his horse and gave her one of his canteens, watching as she drank carefully, rationing herself even now. He pulled jerky and hardtack from his saddlebag, and she ate slowly, her body remembering how to take nourishment again. As the sun set in a blaze of orange and purple over the desert, they set out north, Beatrice riding on Copper with Liam walking alongside. They did not talk much that first night, saving their breath for the journey, but there was a companionship in the silence that felt natural and right. Liam found himself acutely aware of her presence, the way she held herself upright even though she must have been exhausted, the quiet determination that kept her moving when most people would have given up. They traveled for 3 days, moving slowly to spare both Copper and Beatrice. Liam hunted rabbits and found water sources, sharing everything equally. At night, they took turns keeping watch, and Liam noticed that Beatrice did not sleep deeply, jerking awake at every small sound with her hand reaching for the rifle. He understood that kind of wariness, that inability to feel truly safe. It took more than a few days to unlearn the lessons that violence taught. On the fourth morning, as they were skirting around a town called Mountain Home, Beatrice finally asked the question he had been waiting for. "What happened to you, Liam? You said your brother died in the war, but there is more to it than that." Liam was quiet for a moment, watching the way the early light turned the landscape gold. "There is always more," he said finally. "Thomas was the good one in our family, the one who believed in causes and justice and doing the right thing. When the war started, he enlisted immediately. I tried to talk him out of it, told him it was not our fight, but he would not listen. So I enlisted too, figuring if he was going to get himself killed, I should at least be there to watch his back. But you could not save him," Beatrice said softly. "No." The word came out harder than he meant it to. "We were at Shiloh, Tennessee, spring of 1862. The fighting was so thick you could not see 5 feet in front of you for the smoke. I lost track of Thomas in the chaos, and by the time I found him, he had taken a musket ball to the chest. He died in my arms, talking about how it was all going to be worth it, how we were fighting for something important. I have spent the last 8 years trying to figure out if he was right, or if he was just a kid who died for nothing." Beatrice reached down from the saddle and touched his shoulder, a brief contact that somehow said more than words could. "He was your brother and you loved him. That is not nothing." Liam looked up at her and felt something shift in his chest, like a door he had kept locked for years was starting to open. "No," he agreed, "it is not." They reached Jake Morrison's ranch on the evening of the 5th day, and Liam had never been so glad to see the weathered buildings and split-rail fences of the Triple M spread. Jake himself came out to meet them, a tall man with graying red hair and a limp from where a horse had kicked him years back. He took one look at Beatrice and then at Liam, and whatever he saw in Liam's face was enough to make him nod without asking questions. "Guest room is made up," Jake said simply. "I will have my wife bring some food and fresh clothes. Miss, you look like you could use a bath and a proper meal." Beatrice's voice was thick with emotion when she answered, "Thank you. You do not know what this means." "Any friend of Liam's," Jake said, and left it at that. Jake's wife, Sarah, was a round-faced woman with kind eyes who fussed over Beatrice like a mother hen, drawing her a bath and finding clothes that would fit. Liam tried not to think too hard about how Beatrice would look cleaned up and rested, tried not to notice that he cared more than was probably wise for a woman he had known less than a week. That night, after Beatrice had fallen asleep in the guest room and Jake had gone to bed, Liam sat on the porch and stared at the stars scattered across the black sky. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Jake carrying 2 glasses and a bottle of whiskey. "Figured you might need this," Jake said, pouring generous measures and handing one to Liam. "Thanks." Liam took a sip and let the burn ground him. "You want to tell me what is really going on?" Jake asked. "Because I have known you long enough to recognize when you have gotten yourself into something complicated." Liam sighed and told him the whole story, from the wanted poster to finding Beatrice in the mountains to the decision to bring her here. Jake listened without interrupting, his weathered face unreadable in the darkness. "So you are harboring a fugitive," Jake said when Liam finished. "I am helping an innocent woman," Liam corrected. "Law might not see it that way." Jake took a long drink. "But then again, I never put much stock in what the law says versus what is right. She can stay here as long as she needs. We can always use an extra hand, and Sarah has been after me to hire someone to help with the kitchen garden and the chickens. Might be good for both of them." Relief washed through Liam. "I cannot thank you enough. You saved my life in Cheyenne when those rustlers came after me," Jake said. "This makes us even. But Liam, what are you planning to do? You cannot spend your whole life running from place to place with her. Eventually, you have to either clear her name or put down roots somewhere no one will find you." I know, Liam said, though he did not have answers yet. I just needed to get her safe first. The rest we will figure out. Jake nodded and refilled both glasses. You care about her, I can see it. Liam started to deny it, then stopped. Maybe. Is that foolish? Love usually is, Jake said with a slight smile. But that does not make it wrong. The days that followed fell into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Beatrice helped Sarah with the house and garden, and Liam worked alongside Jake and the ranch hands, mending fences and moving cattle and doing the 100 small tasks that kept a ranch running. In the evenings, Liam and Beatrice would sit on the porch together, talking about everything and nothing. She told him about growing up in a small town in California, about losing her parents to fever when she was 16, about the loneliness that had made her vulnerable to Vincent's charm. He told her about Missouri and his family's farm, about the war and the years of drifting that came after, about the feeling that he had been waiting for something without knowing what it was. Maybe you were waiting for a reason to stop drifting, Beatrice said one evening as the sun painted the sky in shades of rose and amber. Maybe I was waiting for you, Liam replied, and the words hung in the air between them, honest and terrifying. Beatrice turned to look at him, and he saw his own feelings reflected in her eyes, that mix of hope and fear that came from caring about someone when you had been hurt before. Liam, I am wanted by the law. I have nothing to offer you but trouble. You should walk away while you still can. I never was very good at doing what I should, Liam said. He reached out and took her hand, marveling at how natural it felt, how right. I burned that poster because something in me recognized something in you. Maybe it was the fact that we have both been running from different things, or maybe it was something simpler than that. All I know is that when I look at you, I see a future I did not think I was allowed to have. What kind of future? Beatrice asked, her voice barely above a whisper. One where we do not have to run anymore. One where we wake up in the same place every morning and build something together. One where you are safe and happy and never have to be afraid again. Liam squeezed her hand gently, but only if that is what you want too. Beatrice's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I want that so much it terrifies me, but Vincent will not stop looking for me, Liam. He is too proud and too vindictive. As long as he is alive, I will never truly be free. Then we will find a way to stop him, Liam said with a conviction he felt deep in his bones. Legal or otherwise, you are not alone in this anymore, Beatrice. Whatever comes, we face it together. She leaned forward and kissed him then, a soft, tentative press of lips that held all the promise of something beginning. Liam cupped her face in his hands, careful and reverent, kissing her back with a tenderness he had not known he possessed. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard, and Liam felt like he could face down the devil himself as long as she was by his side. Their fragile peace lasted another 3 weeks before Vincent Hastings showed up with 4 hired guns and a fresh warrant. Liam was out checking the north fence line when he heard the gunshots coming from the direction of the ranch house. He kicked Copper into a gallop, his heart in his throat, praying he was not too late. When he crested the hill and saw the scene below, his blood turned to ice. Vincent Hastings was a tall man with slicked back dark hair, and the kind of handsome face that hid cruelty well. He stood in front of the ranch house with his hired guns fanned out behind him, and Jake was on the porch with his rifle raised, positioned between Vincent and the door where Sarah and Beatrice must have been hiding inside. I do not want trouble, Jake was saying as Liam approached. But you are not welcome on my land. I am not here for you, old man, Vincent said, his voice carrying across the yard. I am here for my wife. She is a criminal and a fugitive, and I have the legal right to take her back. The hell you do, Jake said flatly. Vincent's face darkened. I have a warrant signed by a judge. If you interfere, you will be breaking the law." "Some laws need breaking," Jake replied, and Liam had never respected the man more than he did in that moment. Liam rode into the yard and dismounted in one smooth motion, placing himself between Vincent and the house. "You need to leave," he said, his voice cold and level. "Beatrice is under my protection now." Vincent's eyes found him, and Liam saw the calculation there, the weighing of odds. "And who might you be?" "The man telling you to ride away while you still can," Liam said. He was aware of the hired guns, their hands hovering near their weapons, aware of how badly this could go if someone got trigger-happy. But he was also aware of Beatrice inside the house, afraid and depending on him, and that mattered more than his own safety. "I have 5 men and the law on my side," Vincent said with a thin smile. "What do you have?" "The truth," Liam replied. "And if you force this, I will make sure that truth gets told. How you beat your wife, how you locked her in a cellar, how she ran because you were going to kill her. I will shout it from every street corner between here and Virginia City until everyone knows what kind of man you really are." For the first time, Vincent looked uncertain. Her word against mine, and no one will believe a hysterical woman. "They will when I tell them," came Beatrice's voice from the doorway. Liam turned to see her standing there, pale but steady, with Sarah behind her. "I am tired of running, Vincent. I am tired of being afraid. You do not own me anymore, and I will not go back with you." Vincent's face twisted with rage. "You are my wife. You belong to me." "No," Beatrice said, and there was power in that single word. "I belong to myself. And if you do not leave right now, I will tell everyone about the scars you left on me. The nights I cried myself to sleep, the times I thought you would kill me. I will make sure your name is poison in every decent household." Vincent took a step forward, his hand going to the gun at his hip, and everything happened very fast after that. Liam drew his revolver with the speed of long practice, and Jake's rifle swung toward Vincent, and the hired guns all drew their weapons, and for a single heartbeat, the whole situation teetered on the edge of bloodshed. "Stop!" The shout came from an unexpected source. One of Vincent's hired guns, a young man who could not have been more than 20, holstered his weapon and stepped back. "I did not sign on to help you drag a woman back against her will. You said she stole from you and tried to kill you. You did not say anything about beating her." "Get back in line," Vincent snarled. "No, sir," the young man said. "I am done. You want to threaten women, you do it without me." He turned and walked to his horse, mounted up, and rode away without looking back. The other 3 hired guns exchanged glances, and Liam could see the doubt in their faces, the realization that maybe they had been sold a false story. One by one, they lowered their weapons and stepped back, and Vincent was left standing alone, his face purple with fury. "This is not over," Vincent spat. "I will come back with the law, with federal marshals if I have to. You cannot protect her forever." "Maybe not," Liam agreed, "but I can protect her long enough to make sure the right story gets told. You might have a judge for an uncle, but there are newspapers and lawyers who care about the truth. You want to make this into a public fight, we will oblige you. But I promise you this, Vincent Hastings, if you ever lay a hand on Beatrice again, if you ever even look at her wrong, I will end you. Law or no law, I will end you." The 2 men stared at each other, and Liam let Vincent see exactly how serious he was, let him see the cold promise of death in his eyes. Whatever Vincent saw there must have been convincing, because he finally backed down, climbing onto his horse with stiff, angry movements. "You will regret this," Vincent said, but the words had lost their bite. He rode away with his remaining hired guns, leaving a cloud of dust, and the echo of threats that Liam knew would have to be dealt with eventually, but not today. As soon as they were gone, Beatrice came down off the porch and straight into Liam's arms. She was shaking, and he held her tight, feeling her heartbeat gradually slow against his chest. "You stood up to him," she said in wonder. "You actually made him back down." "We stood up to him," Liam corrected. "You are the one who told him you would not go back." "That took more courage than anything I did." Jake cleared his throat. "Much as I hate to interrupt, Vincent was not entirely wrong. He could come back with the law and things could get complicated. You two need to either clear Beatrice's name proper, or you need to disappear somewhere he cannot find you." Liam looked down at Beatrice. "What do you want to do?" She was quiet for a long moment, and he could see her thinking it through, weighing options. "I want to fight," she said finally. "I want to clear my name and make sure Vincent cannot do this to anyone else, but I do not know how." "I might," Sarah said. She had been so quiet that Liam had almost forgotten she was there. "I have a cousin in Boise who is a lawyer, a good one. She takes on cases other lawyers will not touch, cases involving women who have been wronged by the system. If anyone can help you, it is Amelia Thorpe." Hope flared in Beatrice's eyes. "Do you think she would take my case?" "Only one way to find out," Sarah said. "I can write to her tonight." It took 2 weeks for Sarah's cousin to respond, and those 2 weeks felt like the longest of Liam's life. He and Beatrice existed in a state of suspended animation, waiting to see if they would have a future or if everything would come crashing down. But they also used that time to grow closer, to learn each other in the quiet moments between worry and work. Liam taught Beatrice to shoot properly, wanting her to be able to defend herself. She taught him to see beauty in small things, wildflowers growing in impossible places, the way the light looked at dawn, the sound of rain on the roof. They kissed under stars and held hands while walking through the pastures, and Liam fell more in love with her every day, with her strength and her kindness, and the way she refused to let Vincent's cruelty break her spirit. She was like a wildfire, bright and fierce and impossible to contain, and he counted himself lucky that she had chosen to let him walk beside her. When Amelia Thorpe's reply finally came, it was better than they had dared hope. She agreed to take the case pro bono, and wanted Beatrice to come to Boise as soon as possible so they could start building a defense. More than that, she had already begun investigating Vincent Hastings and had uncovered some interesting information about his business dealings, including possible fraud and connections to a cattle rustling operation. "If we can prove he is a criminal, it undermines his credibility," Amelia wrote in her letter. "And if we can find other women he has hurt, we can establish a pattern of behavior. This will not be easy, but it is winnable." Liam and Beatrice left for Boise 3 days later, with Jake's blessing and enough money to see them through. The journey took a week, and they used the time to prepare for what was coming, going over every detail of Beatrice's marriage, every incident of abuse, every moment that could help prove her case. It was painful for her to revisit those memories, but she did it with a determination that made Liam's heart ache with pride. Boise was a growing city, prosperous from the gold rush, and full of the kind of energy that came from people building something new. Amelia Thorpe's office was in a 2-story brick building on Main Street, and when they met her, Liam understood immediately why Sarah had recommended her. Amelia was a woman in her 40s with steel gray hair pinned up in a no-nonsense style and eyes that missed nothing. She shook hands with both of them and got straight to business. "Tell me everything," she said. And Beatrice did. It took hours, with Amelia asking questions and taking notes, occasionally stopping to clarify a point or pursue a new line of inquiry. When Beatrice finally finished, Amelia leaned back in her chair and studied them both. "Your husband is a fool," she said bluntly. He left a trail a mile wide. I have already found 2 other women in Virginia City who were willing to testify about his behavior, though he never married them. I have documentation of his financial crimes, and the fact that he put out a wanted poster for attempted murder when you never even touched him works in our favor, because it shows he is willing to lie to the authorities. So you can clear my name? Beatrice asked, barely daring to hope. I can do better than that, Amelia said with a fierce smile. I can destroy his. By the time I am done, Vincent Hastings will be the one facing criminal charges, and you will be free to live your life however you choose. But I need you to be strong, Beatrice. This will mean going back to Virginia City, facing him in court, telling your story in front of a room full of strangers. Can you do that? Beatrice looked at Liam, and he saw the fear in her eyes but also the resolve. He took her hand and squeezed it gently, trying to transfer some of his own certainty to her. I can do that, Beatrice said, especially if Liam is with me. I am not going anywhere, Liam promised. The trial was set for early October in Virginia City, and the weeks leading up to it were a whirlwind of preparation. Amelia was relentless in building their case, tracking down witnesses and evidence, crafting arguments that would sway a jury. Liam stayed close to Beatrice, offering support and comfort when the stress became too much, reminding her that she was stronger than she knew. They stayed in a boarding house in Boise, and at night, when the work was done, they would sit together in the small room they shared and talk about the future they wanted to build. Beatrice dreamed of having a place of her own, a small ranch maybe, where she could raise horses and grow things. Liam found that her dreams were becoming his dreams, that he could picture them building that life together, waking up beside her every morning for the rest of his days. When this is over, he said one night as they lay in the narrow bed, her head on his chest and his arm around her shoulders, I want to marry you, proper with a preacher and witnesses and a ring. I want everyone to know that you are mine and I am yours. Beatrice tilted her head to look up at him, her eyes shining in the moonlight through the window. I am still married to Vincent. Even if we win the case, I will still legally be his wife. Then we will get you a divorce, Liam said. Amelia said it is possible, especially with the evidence of abuse. It might take time, but I am a patient man. I have waited my whole life to find someone like you. I can wait a little longer to make it official. Liam Lawson, Beatrice said, her voice soft with emotion, I think I love you. I know I love you, Liam replied, and kissed her until neither of them could think straight. Virginia City in October was cool and dusty, the leaves on the few trees turning gold and red. The courthouse was packed on the day of the trial, with curious townspeople filling every seat. Vincent Hastings sat with his lawyers, looking smug and confident, but Liam noticed that smugness faltered when he saw Amelia Thorpe and the stack of evidence she brought with her. The trial lasted 3 days, and they were the longest 3 days of Liam's life. He sat in the gallery and watched Beatrice take the stand, watched her tell her story with a quiet dignity that brought tears to the eyes of several jury members. He listened as the other women testified about Vincent's violence, as business associates revealed his fraud, as a doctor described the injuries Beatrice had sustained during her marriage. Amelia was magnificent, weaving it all together into a narrative that was impossible to deny. Vincent's lawyers tried to paint Beatrice as a liar and a thief, but every accusation they made crumbled under Amelia's cross-examination. By the end of the second day, it was clear which way the wind was blowing, and Vincent looked increasingly desperate. On the third day, the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning with their verdict. Not guilty on all charges. Furthermore, based on the evidence presented, the judge issued a warrant for Vincent Hastings' arrest on charges of fraud, assault, and filing a false report. Vincent tried to run, but the bailiffs caught him before he made it to the door, and Liam felt a savage satisfaction watching him be dragged away in chains. Beatrice collapsed into Liam's arms the moment they left the courthouse, sobbing with relief and exhaustion and joy. He held her tight, stroking her hair, murmuring words of comfort and love. "It is over," he said. "You are free, Beatrice. You are finally free." "We are free," she corrected, looking up at him with a smile that lit up her whole face. "We can have that future now." Amelia helped Beatrice file for divorce, and though it took another 6 months for the decree to be finalized, those months were the happiest of Liam's life. He and Beatrice traveled back to Jake's ranch and worked there through the winter, saving money and making plans. In the spring of 1883, they bought a small piece of land just outside of Boise, 50 acres with a creek running through it, and enough grazing for horses. They built their house together. Just a simple cabin to start with, but with the promise of adding on as their family grew. Jake and Sarah came to help with the raising, and other neighbors joined in, drawn by Beatrice's warm smile and Liam's steady competence. In a remarkably short time, they had not just a house but a home, a place that belonged to them and no one else. Liam married Beatrice on a warm day in June, with Sarah's cousin Amelia officiating and Jake standing as best man. Beatrice wore a simple white dress that Sarah had made, and she carried wildflowers that Liam had picked that morning. When they exchanged vows, Liam looked into her sage-colored eyes and saw his whole future reflected there. Every day and every night they would share, every challenge they would face together, every joy they would celebrate. "I promise to love you, protect you, and stand by your side for as long as I live," he said, his voice steady even though his hands were shaking. "You saved me as much as I saved you, Beatrice. You gave me a reason to stop running and start living. I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for that." "I promise to love you with everything I have," Beatrice replied, tears streaming down her face. "You saw me when I was at my lowest and you chose to help me, to believe in me. You gave me back my life and my hope. I will never forget that, and I will never take for granted what we have built together." They kissed as husband and wife, and Liam felt like his heart would burst from the sheer happiness of it. The small gathering cheered, and Sarah cried, and Jake slapped Liam on the back hard enough to make him stagger. They had a simple celebration with food and music and dancing that lasted until the stars came out. And then Liam carried Beatrice across the threshold of their home, both of them laughing with the joy of it. Their first year of marriage was hard work but good work, the kind that left you tired but satisfied at the end of each day. They built up their horse herd slowly, buying good breeding stock and taking the time to train them properly. Beatrice had a gift for working with horses, a patience and understanding that the animals responded to, and word spread quickly that the Lawson Ranch was the place to go if you wanted a well-trained mount. Liam handled the business side of things, negotiating sales and managing their finances, and together they made it work. In the evenings, they would sit on their porch and watch the sun set over their land, and Liam never tired of the sight. He would hold Beatrice's hand and think about the wanted poster he had burned in Owyhee, about the choice he had made to help a stranger, and how that single decision had changed the entire course of his life. "You ever regret it?" Beatrice asked him one evening, as if reading his thoughts. "Everything you gave up to help me. You could have kept drifting, kept yourself free of complications." "Not even for a second," Liam said honestly. "Before I met you, I was just existing, going through the motions. You gave me a purpose, Beatrice. You gave me a reason to care about something beyond just getting through another day. I would burn 1,000 posters if it meant having this life with you." Beatrice leaned her head on his shoulder. "I used to think happiness was not meant for people like me. That I had made too many mistakes, trusted the wrong person, and that I would pay for it for the rest of my life. But then you came along and proved me wrong. You showed me that it is never too late to start over, never too late to find love." "We found each other," Liam said. "And that is all that matters." In the spring of 1884, Beatrice told Liam she was pregnant, and he felt a joy so profound it almost scared him. They prepared for the baby with a mixture of excitement and nervousness, setting up a small nursery in the corner of their bedroom and carefully saving money to make sure they would be provided for. Sarah came to stay with them as Beatrice's due date approached, and her presence was a comfort to both of them. Their son was born on a clear October morning, coming into the world with a healthy set of lungs and a shock of dark hair. Liam held him for the first time and felt something fundamental shift inside him, a fierce protective love that made everything else in his life pale in comparison. They named him Thomas, after Liam's brother, and Beatrice cried when he told her why. "He would have loved you," Liam said, cradling their son against his chest. "And he would have been so happy to know that something good came from all that loss, that his name would be carried forward by this little one." Being parents changed them in ways both expected and surprising. Liam discovered a patience he had not known he possessed, a willingness to wake up at all hours to soothe a crying baby or change a diaper. Beatrice bloomed into motherhood, her natural nurturing instincts finding full expression in caring for their son. They were exhausted and overwhelmed and happier than they had ever been. As Thomas grew, the ranch grew with him. They added on to the house, building a proper bedroom for their son and expanding the kitchen. They hired a young man named Peter to help with the horses, a quiet fellow who reminded Liam a bit of himself at that age, and they took him under their wing. The Lawson Ranch became known not just for good horses, but for fair dealing and honest work, and people came from all over the territory to do business with them. When Thomas was 3 years old, Beatrice became pregnant again, and this time they had a daughter they named Sarah, after the woman who had helped them in their darkest time. She had Beatrice's blonde hair and Liam's dark eyes, and from the moment she was born, she had her father wrapped around her tiny finger. Jake and Sarah visited often, becoming honorary grandparents to the children, and Amelia Thorpe stopped by whenever her work brought her through boys. They heard through the grapevine that Vincent Hastings had been sentenced to 5 years in prison for his crimes, and that his ranch had been sold to pay his debts. Liam felt no satisfaction in the man's downfall, only relief that he would never again be able to hurt Beatrice or anyone else. The years passed in a rhythm of seasons and celebrations, of hard work and tender moments. Liam watched his children grow, teaching Thomas to ride and helping Sarah learn her letters. He and Beatrice added a third child to their family, another boy they named Jacob after Jake Morrison, and their house filled with the sounds of laughter and life. There were challenges, of course, years when the weather was bad or money was tight, times when Liam worried about providing for his growing family. But through it all, he had Beatrice by his side, her strength and love a constant source of comfort and inspiration. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Liam took Beatrice back to the spot where he had first found her, that small cave in the Owyhee Mountains. It took some doing to arrange it, leaving the children with Jake and Sarah for a few days and making the journey south, but Liam wanted to show her how far they had come. They stood together at the mouth of the cave, and Beatrice shook her head in wonder. "I was so scared that day," she said. "So certain that my life was over, that I would die out here alone and forgotten. And then you came riding up with your hands raised and that stubborn look on your face. Best decision I ever made, Liam said, wrapping his arms around her from behind and resting his chin on the top of her head. Burning that poster and coming to find you. Do you remember what you said to me? That you were giving me a chance to decide what I wanted to do? Beatrice leaned back against him, solid and warm and real. That was the first time in years that someone had treated me like I had choices, like my opinion mattered. You gave me back my life, Liam. You gave me mine, Liam countered. Before you, I was just drifting, going nowhere. You gave me a home and a family, and a reason to wake up every morning with a smile on my face. We saved each other, Beatrice. That is the truth of it. They stayed there for a while, wrapped in each other's arms, remembering where they had been and appreciating where they were. The desert stretched out around them, harsh and beautiful, and Liam thought about all the paths that had led him to this moment, to this woman, to the life they had built together. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red, Liam took Beatrice's hand and led her back to their horses. They rode home together through the gathering dusk, back to their ranch and their children and the life that waited for them. And as they crested the final hill and saw the warm lights of their house glowing in the distance, Liam knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be, with exactly the person he was meant to be with, living exactly the life he was meant to live. He had found his purpose that day in Owyhee when he tore down a wanted poster and set fire to the lies it contained. He had found his future in a scared woman with a rifle and sage-colored eyes who had needed someone to believe in her. And he had found his home not in a place but in a person, in the woman who rode beside him now, her hand in his, her heart beating in rhythm with his own. The Wild West had given them both hardship and heartache, had tested them in ways they never could have imagined. But it had also given them each other, and that made every struggle, every sacrifice, every moment of fear worth it. As they dismounted in their yard and were greeted by the excited squeals of their children running out to meet them, Liam pulled Beatrice close and kissed her, pouring into that kiss all the love and gratitude and joy he felt. And when they finally pulled apart, both of them smiling, he knew that this was not an ending but a continuation, another chapter in a story that would go on for years to come, full of love and laughter and the simple, profound happiness of two people who had found each other against all odds and refused to let go.